The city of Cape Town has announced plans to take legal action against Santaco over its 8-day stayaway earlier this month. That strike left thousands of commuters stranded. 5 people also died in violent attacks during this period. Santaco embarked on a stayaway after the city impounded its taxis. Now Mayor Geordin Hill Lewis says the city is assessing infrastructure damage costs and will sue Santaco accordingly. For more on this, the Mayor joins us via our telephone line this Tuesday morning. Great to have you on the program, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much for making time. Is the city of Cape Town saying that it's got it on good authority that the violence and the destruction to infrastructure during that time was in fact carried out by Santaco?
Oh, undoubtedly. I mean, it may not have been carried out with the blessing of the Santaco leadership. They put out statements calling on their members to be peaceful, but those statements were largely ineffectual. They were just symbolic statements meant to give the impression that they were supporting a peaceful strike. Actually, on the ground, many of their members, and I don't say all of them, but I do say many of them, were engaging in acts of violence and destruction. And there must be accountability for that. It's not good enough to say, well, just because we've all agreed to carry on negotiations, that we excuse that unacceptable behavior.
Yeah. You say the statements issued by Santaco were ineffectual. The statements were released nonetheless, and I imagine that's going to be the thrust of their argument if this heads to court. The fact that some people may have ignored it is surely something that Santaco can't do anything about.
No, they definitely can do something about it. As I said to them during the time, if you are serious about showing your commitment to a peaceful strike, come out with us in the early hours of the morning when the roads are being blockaded, when the N2, for example, on 2 separate occasions, was blockaded by Santaco members, and address your members directly and instruct them to stop those blockades so that we don't have to get police out there and engage in violent confrontation with your members. Not once did that happen. So it's all well and good to send us a media statement from the comfort of your home when there are thousands of police officers on the front lines actually having to deal with rogue members who don't care about those media steps.
I suppose the court will decide whether or not that is a reasonable expectation from the side of the city. But people watching from the outside may be taken aback by this decision by the city. I mean, you've just mentioned, we've recently been able to get both parties at the negotiating table. It wasn't easy getting us there. And I suppose, hearing that there's more litigation on the way may very well take us right back to where we started.
No, I think the contrary. I think when taxi industry bosses around the country realize they will be held accountable for their actions and they can't just continuously, on a regular kind of schedule of once a year, bring the city to a halt for a few days, have a lot of violence and destruction, and then just go back to business as usual. And then next year, when we have a disagreement about something else, we do the same movie over and again. There has to be accountability for their actions. That accountability has to be criminal. Obviously, there are criminal cases being pursued as well. And it also has to be civil and financial. So that why should the public carry the cost of all of that damage? Those buses that have to be replaced, those vehicles that have to be replaced, the public at large has to pay for that. And that's very expensive. And so I think there has to be accountability. And that actually helps us for the future, because it forces the taxi industry to negotiate rather than to use disruption and destruction as a form of negotiation. Yeah,
interesting choice of words. It forces them to head into a particular direction, and I suppose that's where the criticism may come from. There's an approach where we seem to, in some ways, use force, if you know what I mean, to get to certain outcomes versus, ongoing negotiation and balancing in that way. Are you saying that you're genuinely not worried that something like this may further drive a wedge further between the relationship that you have with Santaco?
Well, I'm more worried that we set a precedent in South Africa where people can get away with the kind of public violence that we saw that week. That's much more concerning. And I really think that we have a duty, all of us who are responsible citizens, to say that not only must the law apply during times of violence like that, but we have the use of the court court and we have the civil remedies available to us, the civil litigation available to us, precisely for this point, so that people are accountable for their actions, and so that it is not just some chaos and lawlessness.
Have you engaged?
Much more important.
Sorry, I think our line was cutting there. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Have you engaged Santaco before heading to court about this?
Well, so just to be clear, we haven't headed to court yet. I've just sent out an instruction to the city to start collating and collecting all of the true costs of the damage that we suffered. You know, for example, we suffered significant damage to a clinic in Khayelitsha, inside Khayelitsha, and we have CCTV footage of that attack, and we can try to identify some of those vandals. You think to yourself, who would damage a clinic that services mainly poor, mainly female patients on a daily basis? And that's the kind of damage that we suffered. So we're collecting all of those costs, and then we will start drawing up the court papers. In terms of talking to Santaco, I've said clearly, if we can identify the perpetrators responsible and link them to Santaco, we will absolutely be pursuing the matter in court, and that is our intention.
Yeah. If you find, in fact, that these were members not necessarily linked to the taxi council, what happens next?
Well, obviously, we must still try to find them. Then we can, have them arrested and criminally prosecuted. And so then, the option available to us is just the criminal courts. Well, I don't say just the criminal court. That's also important. Don't get me wrong. But then, then it's hard to hold people civilly liable. But if there is a link to Santaco or one of the other taxi unions who are part of Santaco, then obviously we can pursue that action as well.
Sure. What are you able to tell us, Geordin, about the relationship that you do have with the Taxi Council now? I mean, last we checked, there was some kind of negotiation still taking place, ironing out the finer details of your agreement. What's your assessment of how that's going?
Yes, they started yesterday. They're on a 3-day breakaway together, and I heard that yesterday went quite well. I think it's 4 days. They've still got 3 days to go. And so, it sounds, I'm personally not in the negotiations myself, but I have obviously our city team there, and our Deputy Traffic Chief, Merle Lawrence, is representing us there from a traffic perspective, and it sounds like it's going well. So let's hope that they can conclude their work this week.
All right, Geordin Hill Lewis is the mayor of the city of Cape Town. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. We'll see how this particular story or this leg of the story unfolds, if in fact it does land up in court. For now, the mayor of the city of Cape Town is Geordin Hill Lewis. Thanks very much indeed for your time.